listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. Radio's authority on the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology, celebrating 25 years of broadcasting. Broadcasting around the world and to the great beyond.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Like to send us an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X-Zone 724, 365 at xzoneradiotv.com. My guests this hour are a paranormal team. Jay and Marie Yates have worked in the field of paranormal and have been featured on several major networks, including Biography Channel, ABC, NBC, and Travel Channel. They have appeared on Ghost Adventures, My Ghost Story, and Ghost Adventures-Aftershocks, just to mention a few. So instead of me telling you all about them, why don't we bring Jay and Marie on? And Jay and Marie, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you.
Pleasure being here. Thank you.
All right, guys, tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into the world of the paranormal and all the media you do.
Well, I mean, I pretty much fell into it by mistake. I didn't really choose it. I guess you could say it kind of chose me. I grew up haunted, plagued by the paranormal, had experiences as far back as I could really remember. So with that being said, it kind of brought me into the paranormal investigation. Unfortunately, as a kid, we didn't have cool shows like Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters on SyFy to really watch and to kind of know what the heck was going on. So as a kid, I was scared to death. I continued to be haunted throughout my life. August 13th of 99, I had a near-death experience. Kind of changed my direction. Got involved in ministry for a while. They didn't really care too much for my paranormal belief system. Soon after, I kind of left and met my wife, Marie, and we formed the paranormal team.
Now, Marie, what is your background?
I actually had a very peaceful background. I did not have anything to do with paranormal at all. I didn't even see a ghost or anything like that. I never even thought about it through my whole childhood. I didn't actually have my first experience until probably almost a month into dating with Jay. So that actually started my whole experience of paranormal, and it's never stopped. It's actually gotten bigger and better.
So tell me, Marie, what was that first paranormal event that you had with Jay the first month you were dating?
It was a pretty good, I will honestly say it's my first experience. I say is the most grueling one, I will say. We were actually in the backyard, sitting around a bonfire. He was telling me about his childhood, telling me what I might expect to maybe go through being with him. All of a sudden, we started having a freezer that's located in our garage fly open and throwing food out of the freezer.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, I'm trying to find every way possible to debunk it. Like, okay, it just slipped, whatever, So we fixed it, went, put it back in the freezer, sat back down. He started talking more about his experiences. As a child, all of a sudden, the freezer was thrown open once again, even harder, and stuff was thrown out even further. At that point, I'm like, okay, this is a little freaky. I'm not know what's going on here. At this point, I still like, okay, I decided to go check on my children. As I'm walking into my home, I seen a ugly-looking troll walking from the inside of my house going into a walking path next to our house. It looked right at me with blackest eyes that was the scariest little eyes I can honestly say. And it was full body. It was like it was like a human, but it was like a troll looking with, everything looking disfigured completely.
Oh my gosh.
And it was just like, okay, I screamed probably the loudest I've ever screamed in my life because I really didn't know what it was. Jay come running, and he was like, what? And I'm like trying to explain to him what I've seen. At the same time, like this darkness came above our home. And at that time, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I went in the house. I was checking on my kids.
All right, guys, we have to do a little bit of a cliffhanger here because I have to take the first break. Exo Nation, Jay and Marie Yates are our special guests this hour, www.thecopscrew.com, and we'll be back on the other side of the short break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in HamiltonOntario.com. The X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, and my guest this hour, Jay and Marie Yates. We'll all be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Jay and Marie Yates are my very special guest this hour, www.thecopscrew.com. And Marie, before we went to the break, had a bit of a cliffhanger because here you are, your first date with your new guy, and you never had an experience with the paranormal. All of a sudden, if you'll excuse the expression, all hell breaks loose. And and here you are still with him.
I know, it's a very strange thing. You know what? His looks, I guess that kept me.
Hey, I gave her the disclosure that night, so she knew what she was doing.
Listen, guys, tell me, how and why did you form your paranormal team?
Really, honestly, after us getting together, like she had mentioned, things seemed to, after we, got married and everything, tensions with the other side tended to pick up a lot more rapidly than in years past, and we were going through a lot at that time. We was going through some health issues, and so we were doing some job changes and stuff at the time, and we just so happened to stumble upon a great, demonic haunting in our own home.
Really?
So, yeah, we went through hell and back, to be honest. We had, my kids, my wife, myself, we were all affected by it. This is before we were going out taking residential and big businesses. We were just pretty much poking around cemeteries and historical sites prior to that. And all of a sudden, we had moved into a new apartment and trying to start a new life. And everything just kind of got away from us. And we reached out for help in the paranormal community and with clergy and everything. And it didn't really prevail to anything. It's just kind of everyone snubbed their nose at it because they didn't really want to take the case. So I went about myself with Marie, and we kind of took it on by ourselves, and we won. So, but I can still tell you today, I mean, we're still very much still haunted. But that's kind of how Crossing Over Paranormal Society, the Cops Crew, got started. Is we really went through our own haunting ourselves, and get the help that we were really looking for out there. That's not to say anything bad about paranormal teams, because realistically, who really wants to take some type of demonic case where people are being scratched, things are being thrown, and they could potentially become harmed in the process, which I completely understand now. But we're the kind of team that will take residential cases. We only respond to the the worst of the worst, and we try to get out there and really help people that are really struggling with the paranormal on a daily basis, like what we want to do. So
Sure.
That's kind of why it took off, and that's kind of why we did it, just because we were like, we didn't find the help exactly that we wanted when we went through it. So once we were able to conquer it to a point, we said, well, why don't we go out and help other people and see what we can do? And we've been doing it ever since and haven't looked back.
What a great thing to do for other people. Marie, what was it like for you going on your very first investigation? Not the first date now, the first investigation where you actually could anticipate that something was going to be really strange.
I will honestly say the very first time, even though I had like some experiences after this, before we went on to this case, I was the first one to try to debunk almost anything that happened. One thing I really will say is going on to investigations, especially with residential, I actually enjoy speaking to the client. Mm-hmm. Just because we actually have gone through it ourselves. So it ain't just like, oh, there are any paranormal groups that we actually live it every day. So it's nice to actually go in there and speak to them, console them, almost counsel them on how you can actually live with a paranormal, not always be so frightened of it. So it was actually the very first time, I will honestly tell you, we actually had a door open, and I will tell you to this day I try to debunk it every time, and nobody will let me debunk it.
Why do you want to debunk it?
At that time, I didn't believe. I could not imagine a door can just open all by itself without anything. So I try to, until this day, I've had so much paranormal experiences and seen so much. So I know it's out there, but I will still try to debunk stuff because sometimes other things do cause other things. So I'm the first one to try to find out the honest truth of why it's happening.
What in your opinion, Jay and Marie, is your most memorable paranormal investigation?
Wow, that's a tough one. There's so many.
Mine would be the cemetery. I mean, we did Liberty Cemetery, and I honestly, just going out there and it was emotional. I mean, when we did it, it wasn't just so we went out there. It's like you felt what the victims and the paranormal, what they actually were experiencing. You felt it walking through the cemetery. We had actually something follow us home as well. So it was something that just held with me, and till this day, always trying to, help the other side.
And how about you, Jay?
Most memorable case for me. The cemetery case that we took, the Liberty Cemetery, it's kind of east of Buckeye. It was a relatively interesting case. We went there. It was a very emotional setting because a lot of these people, you realize, that were buried there, they weren't marked graves, number one. A lot of children that were buried. There was a flu epidemic that had swept through this area, like 70 years ago or something, 80 years ago, or even sometimes further back, depending. But, we had a lot of crazy experiences happen. There was the first time of us investigating together to where just to kind of get like emotionally involved with the investigation of the place. I became relatively obsessed with it. I remember asking a particular gentleman that was well known here in this community that had passed away to come forward and shake my hand. And I remember feeling that feeling of that contact from that ghost and the sensation and the electricity in my hand. It was incredible. Something at that point that I hadn't experienced at that level as far as touching was concerned. But yeah, we had a little boy that seemingly followed us home, and it lasted a while. It did not want to leave. But I remember waking up after the investigation at between the hours like 2:30, something like that in the morning, and I heard someone choking. Sounded like a little kid choking, and I thought it was my son. So immediately as a father, I jump up off the couch. I'm like, oh my gosh, is my son okay? And I look at my front door, and there's a kid in period dress, around 11, 12 years old, standing there, just looking straight at me. And then in a brief second, me looking at him, I'm looking at the clock. It changes to another minute later. I'm like, okay, I'm awake. And this thing just shot straight across the room right in front of me and just disappeared out of nowhere. So it was kind of a case that we took home. So sometimes we bring the work home with us. There's a lot of piggybacking that seems to happen.
All right, honey. I'm going down to the corner store. I'm going to get us some milk. I'm going to get us some bread, and I'm going to bring back 3 spirits. Do you mind? Any special kind you'd like? You guys don't. How do you guys protect yourself when you go out on investigations to make sure that you aren't harmed, or that other members of your team aren't harmed, or that you guys don't bring anything home with you?
You know what? I think it's almost, I've tried all these different, I've talked with multiple people in the paranormal community, and they told me to do this and to do that. And I really, I do harness very much so my faith, which I do rely on heavily on investigations. But you have to understand, as a paranormal investigator, what you're getting into while you're doing this. I mean, we obviously assume all risk, and all my team, they assume all risk when they go out on investigations. And we kind of have a different approach to investigating, which you don't normally see. We do a lot of like ghost baiting, if you will. So it's with intent to make contact. I know Marie, she gets what you would call, quote unquote, attacked quite often by things. But we look at it as an attack because we see scratch marks on someone's shoulder or their arm, or, temporary welt marks. But are those spirits really trying to hurt us, or are they really just trying to communicate with us and tell us a story? We asked them to come forward. We wanted them to manifest. So as an investigator, sometimes I look at it when people say, oh, we were attacked, as maybe you were just communicated with by the other side and not so much harmed or hurt.
Where do you draw the line between a spirit who's trying to hurt you and a spirit who's trying to communicate with you? How do you differentiate between the two?
Well, we were recently on a residential case, and we don't take a ton of those a year, maybe like 5 or 6. And we were recently on an investigation, and that was involving a child that was being harmed and whatnot.
Right.
But we more or less came in there just to, the mother felt like she wanted to find out whether or not this is or is not happening, pretty much. And we went in there very mildly, just with our equipment, very scientifically, as much as we possibly could. And Marie ended up getting scratched. I immediately, she became sick and nauseous, and I called the investigation at that point with her and had her just, why don't you go sit outside, honey? Why don't you just, take a break?
Sure.
So, if it gets to a point to where someone's, getting sick or nauseous, especially my wife, I don't want to see that. I'll try to take it as far as I possibly can personally, but what it seems is that, me trying to make the contact that I'm trying to make, and if something's trying to agitate or, harm or communicate, it seems to generally use this Marie as the object in which it does so, and not so much me, which I find very interesting. So we do a lot of trying to understand that.
Well, could it be possible? Could it be possible because Marie is so new into this realm compared to yourself, who has grown up with it, and maybe your skin's a little thicker than Marie's when it comes to the paranormal?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's quite possible. I'm definitely open for interpretation and opinions, because it's something that we're looking at. Because obviously, we don't know everything, and none of us do in this field, and we try not to claim that, of course. But it makes you wonder. Yeah, is it maybe that the spirit realm is more knowing that I could see this, and I've been through it for so long that maybe it doesn't really want to bother with me. Maybe more so influence my life. I don't know. It's a really good question.
All right, guys, stand by. We've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. We'll be back after this short break with our 2 very special guests this hour, X-Zone Nation, Jay and Marie Yates. And we're going to hear more of their paranormal stories as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. If you'd like to contact Jay or Marie to talk to them about their exploits, or if you need their help, visit their website at www.thecopscrew.com. That's www.thecopscrew.com. And we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue investigating the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology right here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back, everyone. Jay and Marie Yates are our special guest this hour. www.thecopscrew.com. What do you guys think the world of the paranormal investigation community will look like in 10 years from now?
I don't know. Hopefully, it's a more tight net of the community. Hopefully, there's more people willing to work with others, so we can all learn from each other and learn different techniques. And just recently, I had an opportunity to work with some great people out at the Yuma prison here in Arizona, and I learned some things that I was looking at Marie, and I'm like, why the hell haven't we been doing this all along? Like it was just different techniques that I had never seen before. So different technologies that people are, putting together. So my hope is in 10 years that we can work together a little bit more peacefully, a little bit more civilly, and not be so judgmental, I guess, in thinking that one person is better than the other, and that we can kind of all, get on the same page a little bit. That'd be great.
It'd be nice for all paranormal groups. Everybody has their own difference of how they do it, what they think, and all that. That's one thing about our group is every person on our team is a totally different kind of background. So we're very open to everything. So it'd be nice to see that in the whole paranormal community. Open to everybody and not judgmental on everybody else's decisions, how they do investigations and stuff.
For example, like our team is made up in the beginning, of course, we were very like, okay, the crew has to be made up of this.
Sure.
Cops crew is our acronym. The majority of us in the beginning had all law enforcement background, which is in part of the name, the acronym rather, cops, So it was, we looked for people with honesty and integrity, of course, to be with us out there in the field. And we kind of wanted, in the beginning, like-minded individuals that, have Christian background, this and that. And I realized that was a big mistake. And the reason why I realized that was a big mistake is because most of the cases we were taking, they weren't all Christian. You had Wiccans, you had atheists, agnostics, Catholics. I mean, it was all different backgrounds in Christianity.
Sure.
People that were involved in witchcraft and magic and things like that. So I'm like, why are we just segregating ourselves? I mean, we would learn so much more if we brought people in with different backgrounds and opinions. And thus we started bringing in people. We have a Catholic, agnostic, a Wiccan,
a Buddhist,
two Buddhists. We also have someone that even either taught or using, satanic type stuff back in the day. And we can come to him and ask him questions about things that maybe I wouldn't be so familiar with and to gain some understanding. And really the bottom line is to help, the client, whether it be a homeowner or a historical location or a business.
Why do you think that there seems to be more spiritual or ghost activity these days? I've spoken to many other paranormal investigators like yourselves who are reporting an increase in numbers of paranormal investigations that they're getting. Is something going on?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think that technology is what's going on. Social media is what's going on. Everyone's connected. So I think we're hearing a lot more of those stories, and they're coming out more. Television, Marie and I have had great opportunities to be on multiple networks, and we're working on new projects now where we're able to get out those stories at a larger scale than what we would have been able before. Like I mentioned, when I was a kid, we didn't have full shows. So, I think the TV shows in itself is getting the stories out there. The social media is driving it. But is there any kind of supernatural or underlying situation which is occurring? Who knows, man?
I think it has to do with when you open yourself up to it, just like me. Through my whole childhood, I never seen or experienced anything. Well, I never actually brought it into my life. I never thought about it. I never went out there. I never seeked it. These days, it's sort of like the in thing a little bit to be a paranormal investigator, to go out there and ghost hunt and all this kind of stuff. So it's sort of like it's popular a little bit in a way, I think, for kids these days and, adults and stuff.
We host events all around the valley here in Phoenix and Arizona, Mesa, up north, down south. And what we find is that your average person, will come to a ghost hunt that's never really been officially part of a paranormal team, but they have some pretty good equipment that they purchased through, different suppliers. And it's like, wow. The technology's out there, the ability for people to make purchases for equipment like ghost meters, EMF detectors, and, everyone's got apps on their phone. it's more prominent. And what I love about it is that paranormal and the talk of ghosts is kind of becoming a normal conversation amongst people. Where 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if you talked about this stuff, in front of some people, you'd look like you were an idiot, and
Right.
you were scared to socially unacceptable. But now it's becoming a little bit more acceptable. And of course, you're going to have your skeptics, and what are you going to do? I mean,
Let me
We have
ask.
one of those.
I'm sorry, Marie. Go ahead, dear.
Oh no, I was saying we have one of those on our team.
skeptics.
Yeah, he's always trying to he will tell you everything. He's trying to debunk everything. So it's amazing. I try to debunk myself, but he
Right.
is one of those that.
He's one of those type of personalities where if he saw something manifest right in front of him, he reacted to it through fear and went running across the house, explaining what he just saw. 2 hours later, he'd be like, there was an actual explanation for that. Well, how? Explain to me how. And sometimes he'll come up with these elaborate, opinions on why this occurred. And, I listen to him, and I'm just like, you know what? One of these days, Michael, you're going to have to accept the fact that there's something else out there.
Exactly. Let me ask you this. What is the ultimate goal of a paranormal research or investigation group? What do you guys hope to accomplish?
Our mission statement is very clear. To seek truth, understanding, and proof of the paranormal by any means necessary. So for us, if we could seek truth, and we could seek some type of understanding, and get some proof, then we can kind of, relate to our clients, even if we don't get that great evidence. Because let's just face it, when we go out on investigations, what do we spend? We spend 4, 5, 6 hours maybe in a location, and then we're gone. These people that are having these claims are there 24/7, or they're there 40 hours a week, for 3 years going through this. So for us to assume that we go out there in a brief amount of time and to be able to gather all this elaborate evidence, it's kind of difficult. So I think really what it is us to be able, if we can't catch all that evidence, let's see if we can kind of, provide some kind of explanation by historical value, looking at the land, the building, the property, the items within it, maybe some things that are going on internally inside that location. But the ultimate goal, for us especially, is to provide, understanding and information and truth and proof to the clients that we serve.
Is the ghost paranormal investigation community like other communities that are into the paranormal? For example, the UFO community, the Bigfoot community, where there is a very little exchange of information and data because each group wants to have the ability to claim that they have the smoking gun.
That has happened in the paranormal community. I will honestly say when Jay was talking about the Yuma, when we experienced that a lot here in Arizona with a lot of our teams. We have met quite a few here in Arizona that are open to sharing, hey, come into where I have, see what you catch.
Right.
But when we went down to Yuma and we met with a lot of paranormal groups that came through California, Nevada, and that, I was so surprised how willing they were open to hey, let's share this, and you do this, and you come with this. It was we weren't really used to that here in our state. It's only a very selected few that does that here. So it's really nice to know that, Jay and I, we have some really nice spots, and we invite any paranormal group.
Sure.
If you want to go out there and try it, I'm more happy to have another paranormal come out there. If we caught some evidence, I would love them to catch it as well, just to validate what we caught. It's more evidence for everybody.
I think everybody stays wherever you're at in this whole world. I think that people become very territorial of gems that they obtain via whatever contact that they might have. So people are kind of first off, I think the biggest worry is that if people invite other teams out to investigate, that they might somehow damage or tarnish the image of said location or do something that would not be acceptable to the owners of the location. So I think that's a lot of the fear. I think if everybody was a little bit more on the same page and they communicated, I think we would just get so much further with, real research in the paranormal. We call it research, but there's not a whole lot of documentation and a whole lot of note taking There seems to be like sometimes a little bit too much excitement, thrill, and entertainment, you know?
You've done a lot of media. You've done a lot of television. You've been on a lot of the different ghost reality shows. And I have to ask you, as seasoned investigators yourselves, do you find that the so-called reality TV shows are a hindrance or an asset to the ghost community?
I think it's great that to have the shows out there because essentially, like I said, there's people out there that are going through things that they can't explain, and they can kind of take something from some of those shows and help them in their own pursuit and understanding of the paranormal. I think it brings about, like I said, more conversation about the paranormal and making it more something that people could talk about. I think that the other side of the coin, it does cause some issues. You know, I think that some people assume that reality shows are fake. It's one of those things that, like, unless you're really out there and you've actually filmed on a show yourself and actually seen that for yourself, then you can make that judgment, in my opinion. But the shows that we've been affiliated with and things that we've gone on have been nothing but honest and nothing but truthful.
Yeah.
And the people that we've met that are huge, public figures in the paranormal community on television, reality stars or whatnot that are doing what we're doing, they're very honest and they're very passionate about the field. And I was kind of surprised by some of the big players that I've seen in the TV world and the paranormal genre, how incredibly kind that they were and how much passion they really have for it. Because sometimes we watch it on TV, and we go, wow, is that? Because I was one of those guys before I went on television where I looked at it and I'd be like, wow, I don't know if this guy's telling the truth. Are they faking evidence? I think a lot of times what happens with shows is, they show a lot of the excitement, obviously, that happened during that investigation. Maybe someone jumped because they saw something. It's not that they're not showing anything that's paranormal. They're showing the human experience of these people that are actually out there in these abandoned buildings and warehouses and homes that are investigating. I can't tell you how many times I've jumped when I wasn't, on camera or whatever, because of something that I saw, So just because it wasn't caught on tape and they weren't able to, show that to the audience, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
I think what the audience needs to realize as well is that when you are out on an investigation with or without a TV crew, you're not doing everything within the constraint of 22 minutes. You're there for hours upon hours, if not days.
Exactly. You're exactly right, and that is very true.
A lot of our recording from our TV shows and stuff we've done, a lot of those cameras are in there for like weeks.
Yeah.
And to put that all in one little TV show to actually, to show people what happens, they do choose the spots that are actually more exciting.
Well, of course they do.
They want people to be entertained. They want people, the majority of the stuff that we've done, being like commentary and, us speaking about our own experiences and whatnot and reenactments and whatnot of stories that we've actually gone through on a personal level.
Right.
It's one of those things where, of course people want to hear the worst of the worst. But if I were to sit there and tell you I went through a haunting for 2.5 years, that was terrifying, there's not enough room on television, like you said. You're going to have to condense that down as much as possible, and then, eventually, you got the spot, but it's a very short, condensed version of said spot. Not saying that it's not true. It's just that it had to be condensed for television, or you'd end up with a whole season for one show.
That's right.
So,
Plus, people don't realize that when you and your crew bring back your cameras, you have to go through all the digital footage, audio, and video before you do anything.
Hours.
Yeah.
Hours of that. It's just ridiculous, how much you have to really go through. So, and that's really, I think, it's just a misconception. I think that people see it. People that say that stuff is fake on television are probably people that are skeptical of the paranormal anyways.
Right.
Or the groups that are just upset that they haven't been on TV.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of that out there. If they don't get it. I will honestly say one of the team groups that we do, Ghost Adventures, I honestly will say they're an amazing TV show. The whole travel channel, everything. made it very amazing experience, us sharing our experiences, and then how they went in with us and actually did it as well. So I really look up to a lot of the TV shows.
Yeah, we did a lot of stuff, or we did we did Ghost Adventures, and you know, the whole cast and crew were very kind, very respectful, you know, just normal people. You know, it just so happens that they have a television show, but they legitimately, these people actually enjoy the process of investigation, and it really shows. And their personalities are very much so similar when you meet them in person. You know, Aaron, he's a goofball. I mean, like, you know, he's a fun
Zach is very passionate, and it's actually, you don't see that very often, and I'm actually glad he actually does that on TV, because they need that on TV. So
no, yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, you see these people on TV, you see them for what the show has portrayed them to be or whatever. You meet them in person. I mean, these people are really good people, and then they're all out there legitimately seeking the same things. It's just that they have a great platform and they got a great thing going for them, and they're able to do this as a living. You know, so I mean, you know, more power to them.
When I come back from this commercial break I was going to say the news, but this is just a commercial break. This is the last segment that we're coming to. I'd like to get each one of your opinion on the following. Marie, I'd like you to give me your opinion of the movie The Exorcist. And Jay, I'd like you to give me your opinion of the movie on the Amityville Horror. Now, I'd like your opinions as professionals. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so please stand by. Great having you guys with us. Thank you so much for sharing your time here on the X-Zone. X-Zone Nation, Jay and Marie Yates, our special guest this hour, www.thecopscrew.com. And we'll all be back on the other side of this break as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, Monday, March 21st, the X-Zone is on the Mutual Broadcast Network, 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday. We'll all be back on the other side. Maybe we'll bring a few ghosts back with us. You never know. Don't go away.
You're listening to the X-Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
X-Zone Nation, as we have been saying for the past hour, our guests are Jay and Marie Yates. And their website is www.thecopscrew.com. And this has got to be a love story that never had a ghost of a chance, because this young lady was not spooked on their very first date when she comes from a family and a past that has no interaction with the paranormal, meeting up with the guy of her dreams, who, well, I'm going to call him Spooky from now on. Guys, great having you with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Keep up the great work that you guys are doing. But all right, as I asked you before we went to the commercial break, Jay and Marie, let me see. Let's go with Marie, ladies first. What was your impression as a professional now of the Exorcist movie?
I actually thought it was actually a good movie.
Okay.
It's one movie that I actually did buy on DVD, so I don't usually buy too many anymore. I will say a lot of it in the movie is portrayed. It was very. It's a demonic movie, and
right.
I do believe they exaggerated a lot in the movie what really happened in real life.
All right, so if I was to ask you to give me a rating from 1 to 10 spooks, how many spooks would you give me? 10 being the highest number of spooks, 1 being the very lowest.
I would say probably 5.
All right, so let's go 5 spooks on The Exorcist, and now let's go to Jay. Jay, the Amityville Horror. How many spooks will you give me on that? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest.
I'd say 10, man. It's a classic case, you know. Amityville Horror.
Yep.
You know, Ed and Lorraine Warren. I mean, the pioneers of what we're doing here today. Yeah, definitely a 10.
Listen, we've got about a minute and a half left before we have to say so long for now. What is your advice? What is your final words that you'd like to leave with the X-Zone Nation tonight, guys?
You know, all those people out there that are involved in this field, you know, make it fun, make it enjoyable, or why are we even doing it? You know, find ways to change it up. You know, don't try to follow the patterns that we see from others and that we've seen on television. Try something new and see what we can come up together, and hopefully we'll be able to understand this world we call the paranormal a little bit better, you know.
And how about you, Marie? What are your final thoughts?
With the whole thing, I know a lot of people are very interested, like I said, into the paranormal right now. I would really I always tell people when I'm ending, I would recommend making sure you know that this is a very expensive hobby to get into.
Right.
If you're really going to get into ghost hunting, it's not just, you can go and get just a recorder and a camcorder, a camera, and that's it. But to really get into it, what we actually do, it gets pretty pricey.
Bankrupt.
So, yeah, I would say bankrupt almost.
All right.
I mean, I would...
Go on, dear. Quickly.
Oh.
Quickly.
We're good.
We're good. I would
Oh.
say thank you. I actually was done. Yeah.
Listen, Jay and Marie, thank you so much for joining us. Great talking to you. Look forward to talking to you again. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like more information on Jay and Marie Yates, visit their website, thecopscrew.com. Well, that's it for tonight, X-Zone Nation. I'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. So until tomorrow night, to all our guests and to all the great members of the X-Zone Nation, always keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night, everyone.